Hello again, everybody. It's Greg, and got a couple of videos we want to do in a series called Who Are You, Lord? And the idea behind these next several videos that I'll do will just simply be discussing the nature of our Messiah. And I named this, just did a simple PowerPoint presentation called Who Are You, Lord? And the reasoning behind that is, when Paul was on the way to Damascus, he got knocked off his horse because he saw the light. That's what he said. He said, Who art thou, Lord? And we've been talking about in my fellowship the nature of Yeshua, who he is. And I wanted to just make several short videos that go over some scriptures that talk about the nature of the Messiah and how important it is to understand that. So let's go through a couple of these. These videos are going to be short, and I want to try to do several of them. So if we're going to understand the nature of our Messiah, we have to start out with a very simple point, and that is that the scripture plainly says, no one has seen God. And I don't want you to take my word for anything. We're going to go just through the scriptures and see what they say and let the word speak for himself. John 6:46 says, not that anyone has seen the Father except he who is from God. He has seen the Father. Now, I was discussing this with a brother, and he brought this verse up. He says, well, the scripture says that no one has seen the Father. But in 1 John 4:12, it plainly says, no one has ever seen God. If we love one another, God abides in us, and his love is perfected in us. 1 Timothy 6:16, why has no one ever seen God? Because he alone has immortality, and he dwells in unapproachable light. If you ever tried to get near him, you would simply get torched by his holiness. And it also goes on to say, whom no one has ever seen or can see. To him be honor and eternal dominion. Continuing on, John 1:18, very plain, no one has ever seen God. The only God who is at the Father's side, he has made him known. Very interesting verse that gets translated a lot of different ways in different translations, but I default to the ESV, but certainly don't consider it to be a perfect translation. You can look at other translations if you like, but in the ESV, it plainly says that Yeshua is God. No one has ever seen God, but the only God, clearly speaking of the Word, just because that was mentioned in a couple verses prior, he has made him known. Now, we just said no one has seen God, except we have a problem because we have all these people that absolutely have as we go through this. Genesis 16:13. This is Hagar speaking. It says, she called the name of Yahweh who spoke to her, you are a God of seeing. For she said, truly here I have seen him who looks after me. So Hagar says that she saw Yahweh. Continuing on, she's not alone. Genesis 32:30, Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, which means the face of El, or face of God. For I have seen God, or Elohim, face to face, and yet my life has been delivered. Jacob said that after wrestling with the angel, whom he clearly refers to as Yahweh. Manoah, Samson's dad, said to his wife, we will surely die, for we have seen God. Now think about all these verses that we've been reading here that say no one has ever seen God, no one can see him, he dwells in unapproachable light, etc., etc. And we're basing this on the word of 2 or 3 witnesses, not, one verse taken out of context. But continuing on, in Genesis 18, it says, Yahweh appeared to Abraham by the oaks of Mamre as he sat at the door of his tent in the heat of the day. So scripture plainly says that Abraham saw him. And Exodus 33:11 says, thus Yahweh used to speak to Moses face to face as a man speaks to his friend. When Moses turned again into the camp, his assistant Joshua, the son of Nun, and a young man would not depart from the tent. Lots of examples here where people claim to have seen Yahweh face to face. I think I have one more example here. Exodus 24:9-11. Then Moses and Aaron, Nadab and Abihu, and 70 of the elders of Israel went up, and they saw the God of Israel. There was under his feet, as it were, a pavement of sapphire stone, like the very heaven for clearness. And he did not lay his hand on the chief men of the people of Israel. They beheld God and ate and drank. Also, what's interesting in this passage is it mentions that they saw something under his feet. Now, we know from, John 4:24, that God is a spirit, and those who worship him must worship him in spirit and truth. Spirits are invisible. You can't see them, but they saw the God of Israel, and he had feet. So they clearly saw a man, or something that looks like a man. And as we continue in this study, we're going to talk about, basically, to cut to the chase, how this is Yeshua all throughout the Tanakh, the front of the book, the Old Testament. And that's why in the next short video, we're going to jump in. We're going to talk about who was it that all these people saw. How does the New Testament say no one has ever seen God? Over and over and over, and yet the Old Testament is full of examples where people have seen God. So we're going to make sense of that. Stick with us in this series. Thanks for watching.